Okay, we're live streaming now, so we'll go ahead and get started. Turn it over to Dr. Nolte.
Thank you, Mr. Francis, members of the board. We have an exciting work session for you this evening. I say with a grin. 2020 continues, and we have a lot going on. And then we'll have, I think, a closed session for a legal update and personnel at the end. No action expected. Our first presenter is Jenny. I think she's the only one remoting in for the presentation. This is a follow-up on the implicit bias training that we were going to schedule with myself and the board. So I'll turn it over to Jenny.
Good evening.
Good evening, Jenny.
My speaker. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So in your packet, you have a 2-page flyer about unconscious bias training that we have looked into with Franklin Covey Institute. And Dr. Nolte and I both did a little bit of research about from different organizations about implicit or unconscious bias training. And we both felt like, after talking to some other school districts who have used this company, we both felt like this was the best one to go with. And I don't know if you remember, I know that you guys have had different schools do presentations about the Leader in Me, and this is the same organization that does the Leader in Me training. So just a little bit about what the training is on these 2 pages for you to look at. I'm not going to read that to you. But what we do need to talk about and come to some kind of agreement today is how you want to start the first training. We have scheduled December 1st and 2nd with the trainers, and we feel like in-person training is the best route to go for the board and the first tier of the training. And let me just say that this is part of Dr. Nolte's bias plan to train everyone from the top down. And so we need to talk about if you and the board want to do 2 half days of training, or if you want to do 1 full day training, and full day meaning like probably 8:30 to 4 in person at the conference center. The funding for this is coming, hopefully, from a grant from the Duke Energy Foundation. We should hear something after October 31st. Otherwise, if we don't get the grant, the foundation has agreed to pay for part or all of this training for the whole school district. So we feel like it's that important that the whole district needs to get this training. But I don't know if you want to, how you want to decide about whether you want to do 2 half days, like 8 to 12. You want to do 1 full day, 8:30 to 4, something around that time frame.
Are we talking about, can you hear me?
Okay, yeah.
So does it have to be done in the week? I mean, can we do a weekend? I mean, I know
We
some of
can't
the
do a
board might not like
weekend.
that, but
They book up so quick that they sent me their available dates. And these dates, we wanted to, number one, wait till after the election, because we knew at least one of our board members would not be, with Miss Barrett not running again. We knew that the board may change a little bit, so we wanted to wait till after that. And so I asked them for their available dates, to send me some available dates, and it is always Monday through Friday.
well,
And they book up very quickly. So I went ahead and ran it by Dr. Nolte and said we need to get on their calendar ASAP. So I went ahead and booked December 1st and 2nd, and then I tentatively booked 2 more days in January. But we wanted to get it on the calendar.
so is the time frame from 8 to 4? Can you do it the evening time?
I did not ask. I could potentially,
Well, I mean,
but
obviously-
it's going to be. I didn't think about that, but I could ask if it's going to be a 2-day training. The trainer's going to be here for 2 days. So, and we just want you guys and Dr. Nolte and the administrative team to be trained at some point during that first 2 days because you are in the first tier. We will fill in, however, with the next tier, whatever you guys decide. I can ask the trainer for an afternoon, but it's still going to be, if it's a 1-day training, it's going to be around 6 or 7 hours.
Well, if we do a 1-day training, I'd rather move it to January. Because January, obviously I work, so, a 1 day would be better off for me in January, but obviously I'm only one person, like I've been told multiple times. So, it's just,
it doesn't matter to me. I've scheduled them for those 2 days and 2 more days. So I just know that you guys were in the first tier of the plan, and so I want to try to follow that as
what was the 2 days?
possible.
What was the 2 days in January?
Hold on just a second. I've got it right here.
Hope it wasn't the first and second.
No, it wasn't.
I think
January 1st and 2nd.
Stephen, you're making a good point, and as far as this is a little short it's not too short a notice, but a lot of people's already used vacation time in their work and stuff, so it may be hard to get off of work.
Let's see here.
Board too, just thinking out loud, and we don't want to delay it any longer than necessary, but we do want to get the training done. Trevor has reminded me that, and we did not know this when we scheduled the December days, but Dr. Putnam has reminded me that is the week that we will be making our first central office move.
Mm-hmm.
So,
A lot going on.
we've made about everything else happen during this year that didn't seem like it was going to happen. So I imagine we could still pull it off, but if it's the pleasure of the board, we can. We don't want to delay it, forever. But we could certainly ask Jenny to look at other dates that might work a little better.
I did the January dates are the 26th and 27th.
26th and what?
27th.
Yeah.
When we schedule them, we want to schedule them to come in a 2-day time frame because of the travel and the cost associated with that. I did realize that it was the day we were moving, that central office was moving in the 1st and the 2nd that week, but I also, with the first tier being the board, I didn't think that the central office would be affected by that.
Well, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I would rather do 26th or 27th, and I'd rather just go ahead and do 1 day and get it over with, because I can't miss 2 half days. So
More
it's
difficult.
the pleasure of the board, whatever the board wants to do, but that's my
I think, does everybody else kind of agree with 1 day would be better than taking 2 days off?
I agree.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, but I'm gonna be out of country in January
the whole month.
from the 18th to the 28th.
Can I go with you?
Yeah.
Well, let's
Just don't go with you.
go ahead and figure on the 26th or 27th. Can they narrow it down that much, Miss Jenny? And
I can.
then we'll, that'll give whoever the new board member is or members or whatever, that'll give them a chance to get on the calendar as well.
Okay.
Give them more
For that,
notice.
let me just let me look at what those dates are exactly because I don't know.
Well, now, Mr. Ronnie, how far out can somebody still log in remotely?
That's a Tuesday, Wednesday. They can, I think that. I say that, but I'm not sure because remote cost is one cost. It's one fee, and then in person is another fee. So I'll have to check, but I will ask that. But I'll go ahead and schedule. I'll see if I can't push back the December 1st and 2nd day and make the board dates. Do you have a preference on a Tuesday or a Wednesday?
I would rather do Tuesday.
I would rather do Tuesday as well. Church stuff happens on Wednesday evenings and I'd prefer to do that.
And 1 full day.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I will start with that, and then I'll get some more information to Dr. Nolte for him to send out to you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jenny. Okay, board members, that's what we'll plan for. And I think if Mr. Clark is out of the country, we will have other trainings probably not too long after that for principals and other people. So
Would it be possible to record the training when we do it and then have him watch it if he can't remote in?
I think there are some tasks that we'll do during the meeting that will give us some read on our implicit bias. Sort of, yeah, I know you all have taken those Myers-Briggs and other screeners before, and it tells you about your demeanor and preferences. So I think people could watch it, but to get the full effect, you probably would need to be in there and fill out the screeners or do those things. They're individual activities, so probably be better. Be harder to do remote unless everyone was remote and logging in and doing those simultaneously.
We'll do the best we can.
Yes, sir. Mr. Francis, at this time we have a update on our network rebuild from Kim Jackson. I just want to say, as Kim is coming to the microphone, so we can close caption our live stream later, that their work has been almost unbelievable. The amount of work that they have been able to do in a short period of time compared to other districts who suffer the same kind of attack that we have done. And we've expressed that privately to Kim, but on behalf of the administration, I wanted to express that publicly for her and her staff. But anyway, she's going to give you an update at this time.
Thank you. Thank you. I also want to publicly thank our staff. They have dedicated lots of hours throughout this whole process, and their determination to get us back up quickly has been really, really powerful. Just as an update on our network, wireless access was restored as of August 29th. Wired networks have been turned on at 14 sites. That leaves 6 remaining. 3 additional ones were turned on today, and we have 3 left to turn on by the end of the week. We've returned all devices at all laptops at every site, but we have desktops that still need to be returned at 5 sites. The reason that we held on that was because we had not turned the wired network back on at those sites. In collecting all of our devices, we wanted to make sure that we had them all and they had all been imaged to avoid any potential infection from malware in the future. At this point, we have imaged 2,200 devices and joined them back to our clean network. And that is no easy feat. We've imaged about 150 to 200 a night for the past 2.5 weeks. And we tried to do that without impacting instruction. So that was really an impressive feat from our staff. We consolidated virtual servers from 125 down to 40. And again, when you rebuild a network, it's a good time to kind of consolidate your services and put them together so that you can manage them more efficiently. We removed all physical school-based servers and brought those back to the ITC. What we had out at schools were servers to manage files and printing, as well as DHCP, so we were able to bring all of those back to our office. Network drives were all restored from a backup. They're all accessible, and we've scheduled backups to run daily and weekly. We implemented OneDrive for both staff and students, which gives us an extra layer of protection and another secure backup for both of those user groups. 88 of 89 of our copiers are back online. The only one that's remaining is at the Hazelwood Conference Center. And the reason it's not back online is because we use a wireless bridge to take the internet from the CLC over Folkmoot to the conference center. 1/3 of our 250 printers are back online. And we are restoring the remaining printers as we go out to schools and load software. We changed the IP range for those, so we are having to physically touch those to bring them back online. Camera servers were rebuilt and installed at 9 sites. 3 sites have been rebuilt and are awaiting installation, and 6 sites are in process. Phones and intercoms have been fully restored. Energy management, HVAC, and temperature controls are all in process of being reconnected to our network. And again, part of that is because of the change in the IP range. Access control is functioning at all sites that have it, and we are actually in process of rebuilding the last server. Price gave me an update right before the meeting that it was almost complete. We also implemented some new security best practices. One of those was implementing CIS Level 1, and those benchmarks are internationally recognized as security standards for defending IT systems and data against cyber attacks. So one of those features that we implemented was adding a Control-Alt-Delete to all of our computers that users have to press 3 buttons before they log into their machine. And that is a best practice because it prevents automated attacks. Makes it harder for hackers to get into your system because that's not something they could easily script. We updated all systems to the latest OS. That was something that we've been working on for quite some time, but as we had everything down, it gave us an opportunity to just upgrade everything at once. We implemented multi-factor authentication where appropriate, removed administrator access at the user level. What that allowed our users to do was to load software. So now we've given them several different options to load software, like the Software Center, the Microsoft Store, or we can install or push software out to them. We removed RDP access, and we're limiting VPN access to only users that need that. We've segmented domain level access so that even domain level administrators on our system do not have domain level access unless they use a different user account. We implemented monitoring for external access to our firewall, so if there are any breaches, we do get an immediate email. We also are encouraging users to install updates in a timely fashion, to shut their computers down every night, to check their password strength and to change it often, and to also verify emails that seem suspicious. They can check the sender information in those emails to make sure that they're not becoming a victim of a phishing attack. So those are all of the different things that we've implemented over the past 5 to 6 weeks. Do you guys have any questions?
Just comment, fantastic job, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'll tell y'all.
That's a lot.
You know, I like some of your security systems that you put in place. The fact that you're going to ask people to kind of beware doesn't hurt.
Never hurts.
And if you see something that doesn't look good, I usually just delete them. And if they really want me, they'll call me or re-email me.
Yeah. So. And we've noticed a lot of folks are really paying attention to those things, and they're asking questions if they think they have a suspicious email. So we're happy to answer those questions.
Thank you.
We just appreciate you guys' support as well. I know several of you have stopped by and checked in with us, and so we appreciate you guys for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you, Kim. Mr. Francis, as you know, you voted to return to blended instruction for middle schools and high schools on the 28th, and then Plan A in person each day for elementary. That's a timely manner. Overall, it's gone well with some expected glitches And Jill Barker's going to give you all an update at this time.
Chairman Francis and members of the board. So the 28th was a big week for our secondary schools, our high schools and middle schools. I've been to all of them, talked to some of the kids, teachers, principals, and talked to them even since then just to make sure it's going well. Some of them said it was kind of eerily smooth. I was scared to say anything. So no major glitches at the middle school. There were some traffic type things, I think, at our bigger middle school that they're still continuing to work out. But it was kind of like it was a first day. So all those things that we're always used to working out as principals, they're still working out. So we're nearing the end of the B week. All of our kids that wanted to come back in person by tomorrow will have been back in person. So the principals said, the safety precautions at the middle and the high schools, and I know Dr. Putnam will probably talk about that. They were very happy with that. They felt like there was really good mask compliance with all their students. They talked about how very few discipline issues, if any at all, at any of the secondary schools. And I said, so, what else? They said the kids that are happy to be here. They said things do look a little different. I've got a high school kid, so I understand that. The hallways are a little different. The cafeteria, the social type gathering pieces are different. But all in all, they felt like their kids were back to be in some sort of routine there. Our remote students, a lot of them, with the A-B week, some of them continued synchronous instruction in our schools. Some of them front-loaded, in A week, and then they're in B week right now. So there were a few glitches with that, just making sure they knew what to do on that week that they weren't in there A week. If your name started with W that first week, you weren't there. So, and the principals were really committed to working on that and answering the parent concerns. The teachers have been very, very flexible and adaptable in this situation. I want you to know that. Later on, I did go in a lot of the elementary classrooms, all the elementary schools last week, and wanted to talk to them. Their spirits are good, and they've been through a lot. So I just can't say enough for them. They've changed on a dime when we've asked them to. A lot of challenges, but I feel like they're working harder than they ever have. So, Dr. Nolte, did you want me to share the remote and in-person numbers?
Certainly the
elementary,
on the B week, we told them to give them a couple weeks to decide, you can share anything that they want to ask you about, but I'd definitely share the elementary.
Yeah, the secondary has until tomorrow, so to give you exact numbers with that, we were a little, but I can give you some general ideas. I mean, overall in our secondary schools, like in our high schools, it's around, again, we'll have official total about 75% on average of the kids that return. Okay, middle schools, are a little different. Bethel was a little higher as of right now. Canton in between, and Waynesville was probably the lowest amount, and again hovering around 70% Waynesville middle, and those are not exact numbers, so I'd really like to get those firmed up because there are still parents that are looking at changing their mind, but they're pretty much accurate to what we saw when we did those initial results. When asked, I said, well, if you have a lot of people, change and they feel comfortable, they have. I don't think it was huge, but some people chose remote. They mostly said it looks like it's been a wash, so far. So I'm glad we gave our parents that opportunity just to see what felt good there. As far as elementary, any questions just about our secondary schools, about the in-person and the remote and how that's going?
Just one question. I know that we've given the parents a time frame to be able to choose which one they want to do. If by some chance the governor comes out in a couple of weeks and says, okay, all kids can go back to school, and we make a decision to allow, the middle and high school, everybody going back at one time and come off the A week, B week, are we going to allow the parents another opportunity to make that decision, saying, hey, look, I was okay with my kids sort of being social distance, but now with everybody coming back, I want to pull them back now. So are we going to give them another chance to, okay.
Yeah. And what we've told them is, we kind of need to hold, especially, because right now in our secondary schools, because of our high numbers and places of coming back, we still have to social distance in middle and high school. They still have the 6 feet. So that's been one of the things they're really watching, you know. So, again, if we were to come back under Plan A and everybody comes, that is not a requirement anymore. But we told them it would be an individual. They could talk to their principals and have that authority.
Yeah, let me interject. Obviously, we've had lots of media inquiries, and I enjoy being the media contact person for the district. Done that a long time. And I had an interview today with a regional newspaper, and they're doing a story on weighing the possible negative effects of getting an infection versus weighing the negative impact of being isolated and not being around other people. And I thought it was a great question from the reporter from the regional paper. And the question was, what was your deciding factor? And so I repeated what you as a board and I have talked about, as well as all the folks who are here, is that all along the way, we never really saw it as remote only or in person. We told people that. I wrote that down. We shared that with the media. We talked about it in conversations with staff. For us, it was allowing parents an opportunity to choose what was right for their family. And in-person did not trump remote only, and remote only did not trump in-person. And we wanted to do a really good job with both of them. So certainly, if we have an opportunity to go to Plan A with our older students, we'll do the same thing. We'll pause and talk to them. It may take a brief time to do a transition, and certainly as a board, you will want an update and an opportunity to make that final decision for us. But when we get there, and I hope it's sooner more than later, we'll certainly give people the choices that we have available.
I think that's a great question, because now what we're looking at, the reason we wanted to kind of hold to the 10 days under this is because the in-person, we still have to provide the room and the space. So right now, so that has been tight at times with the numbers we have come back. Any other questions about middle or high school? So thank you to those staffs. Elementary, and again, their totals of elementary right now, and Dr. Bill had collected this, so 79% of our elementary students are in person this week, 79%, 21% remain virtual. So, and that's under Plan A. And I talked to the principals, and it was wild on Monday. It was kindergarten first day, and we don't have essential, if you're a non-essential visitor in the building, so parents were having to drop off. It was a different day. So we did not have a lot of bus ridership, and Dr. Putnam can speak to what that's looked like later. So there were some lines and some crowds. Thank you, parents, for being patient and working through that. But it's like I told Trevor, I said, we weren't just running them in the door. We were trying to, he has coached them and told them about these procedures, and we want those kids to be safe, and the attestation's done, and it took some time. But we just appreciate the patience of the community with that. And, just talking to them, each school at elementary has staff that are dedicated to remote instruction, and we're going to be still working through those. They've got in some cases, they've got different students they're learning. They're adjusting schedules, and so we're continuing to work on that. The principals felt good about that. They are in the process. One school has hired a couple of additional Title I people to support the remote learners. And we told principals in the meeting Monday, you've got the kids in front of you, you have your remote kids. We all want to do a great job with both sets of these populations. So, and they're dedicated to doing that. Just a couple of quotes from principals. They said they're loving it. Laughter, music, smiling from ear to ear with their mask on. I heard that, and just a different feeling with kids in the building. So those are just some of the comments. Heather Hollingsworth said I could quote her. She had met, I think on Wednesday, with her kindergarten, first and second grade teachers and say, do you feel safe? Do you feel like your health, is anything compromised your health? How do you feel? And she said every one of them said they felt safe and felt good. And so she said I could quote her on that. So that was a great level. And we keep continuing to encourage principals, talk to your staffs, reach out to them. Sometimes they don't want to tell their principal, every single thing. And, we said, you got to reach out to them and make sure these teachers are being supported in all kinds of ways we never thought of. And they are. So they said their mask compliance on our youngest kids was good. So we just want to thank them for the tremendous amount of work, the elementary teachers that they put into that transition. And it was a tough, situation in a short period of time, but they did it, and they continued to amaze us, and they had good attitudes. They did. They had some good attitudes out there. So any questions just about our elementary transition? So we're 4 days in. Any questions for elementary?
I just have a comment.
Yes,
I know
sir.
that I've been taking Case and the Junaluska, and they've really streamlined that whole process. They're getting them through there so much faster. The first day, they said they've shaved about 20 some odd minutes off of that first day's traffic. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. It's all hands on deck, and I appreciate everybody's dedication to working to make it safe for our kids, as safe as we can.
And that's our number one priority, to make it as safe as we can. And so far, so good with that. So
But they're really working hard to keep it moving.
I appreciate y'all. Any other questions for me? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Barker. At this time, Dr. Putnam has several support services updates on a range of matters that we want to bring you up to date on, as well as those listening in. Dr. Putnam?
Well, one or the other had to go, because if I have my mask on, my glasses fog up. So, and I understand it's okay as long as I'm presenting. So I'll move through these as quickly as need be, or as slowly as need be. So you stop me at any time. Currently, it is our recommendation to keep facility use closed as we're taking baby steps to get back into school. Many things are not back into use at this time. I just wanted you to be aware that our facility use is still inoperable at this time. We realize that affects many organizations, to include youth sports, community services, and third parties. And we would like as much as anyone to get those back up. The real problems that we're going to run into is that because of the condensed athletic schedule and multiple teams needing indoor spaces to practice, and the timing of the year and how cold it is, it's going to be near impossible just to accommodate our sports teams. In addition, not all the folks have been trained like our folks have been trained with the safety protocols and the screening questions and the temperature checks and the proper cleaning that is needed once the facility is used. And it's for those reasons that I would recommend facility use remain inoperable at this time. Doesn't mean we can't revisit it sometime down the road, but right now I can't see our way forward on it. The other thing that is, first of all, I'll stop there. Is any questions or comments there?
I would just add that part of the state guidance under reopening is that we're reopening for students and staff, and that technically our facilities are still closed to the general public. That may change, with other state announcements, moving to Plan A, moving further into Phase 3. But right now, the facilities are still closed except for school operations.
All right. Thank you. That's a good clarifying comment there. Anything else on facility use?
It's a team effort.
That's right.
Takes a bunch of us.
Teamwork to make the dream work.
That's
How
right.
about that? All right. Next is student drug testing. That is a local decision. This board several years ago decided to enact student drug testing. It'd be my recommendation at this time that we temporarily suspend that drug testing just because of the health hazards that it creates. It is not a necessary process. It's not required. We're not mandated to do it. We can certainly resume with student drug testing as conditions become more favorable, but we really are just trying to limit, as Dr. Nolte pointed out, limit third-party visitors to our campuses to those things that are absolutely essential. And so this is, since it is not required and it is not mandated, it can be presumed that it's not essential at this time. Any questions on student drug testing or comments? Wow, I must be explaining really good or putting you to sleep.
Well, it makes good sense, you know.
Okay, all right.
Just don't tell anybody that's what we're doing.
Right. Well,
We just did.
we just kind of did.
We just did.
Next is our new central office. I put up the interior mock-up boards with the materials that will be used. I put them over there for your review. Today is the last day for addendums and questions. So we could even get them in as late as today, but today is the absolute last day to issue an addendum. So if there's something over there you see that you don't like or you have questions about, speak now or forever hold your peace. Just get with me following the meeting because at that point in time we have to move forward, and in fairness to the bidder we can't be making lots of changes. There will be changes as the project proceeds along. There always is. That plan didn't work out. We're going to have to move this, change that color, pick another material. I did want to let you know that our bid opening will be next Thursday at 3 o'clock in my office, October 15th, so next Thursday. And at that point in time, we will be able to identify who the apparent low bidder is and can begin to negotiate. We'll probably need a special call board meeting about a week after. The reason a week later is because we really need to, I know what this board typically does is, can you negotiate? Can this be taken out? We want to give you the full gamut of considerations prior to calling a special call board meeting. We want to give you some options. Here's what it looks like or costs for just an interior renovation. Here's what it looks like for an exterior renovation. Here are some cost-saving measures that you may want to exercise or not, and bring that back to you. So approximately a week later following the bid opening, somewhere in that range. So kind of, if you don't mind, if Chairman Francis, if we'll obviously
Let me
Dr.
know.
Nolte or I'll call you and say, hey, is there any chance of that?
We'll get with myself and you and Miss King, and we'll do a survey real quick like we usually do.
Yes, sir.
Do a survey.
Sounds good.
All right?
Any questions on that, the new central office? All right, wanted to give you these dates for our temporary move to Central Elementary. We are no longer under time constraints now because it is apparent that there is no way we'll meet a December deadline. So we've been making plans to move to the old Central Elementary School. And at this point in time, personnel, we plan to move personnel very precisely November 30th to December 4th. And all of the personnel, myself, Dr. Nolte, and others included, will be moving that week. Maintenance personnel will be assigned to each person, and they'll help or assist in moving those things that need to move to Central Elementary. And they'll take it down to Central Elementary. And I think I've already shared this, so I apologize for being redundant. I just want you to have all the information. We have already invited staff down to look at spaces in Central Elementary and look and say, oh, I'm going to need a cabinet. This room where I'm at has cabinets and where you're sending me does not. And so we've been able to work through that process and figure out how to replicate that at Central. Again, that was November 30th through December 4th. That will not be a complete move. There will be other things that have to come out after that, but that will at least get all of us in the building and operational within that week. Any questions on that?
We had to do a lot of, I guess, maintenance and upfitting at Central to get it back ready for you guys to move down there. What kind of sort of condition has it been in? Just assume or understand that all these numbers are approximate. We're keeping track of personnel hours and materials expended thus far. We have approximately half the building cleaned and scrubbed down because you can imagine sitting dormant for that long. And that said, with paint and materials and other things, we've only expended about $3,000 to include personnel hours. So we are keeping track of those associated costs with getting it ready. We are not making any improvements that would be needed if it were to open as a school. So we're just going to make do as best we can and keep that cost down. Any other questions? Good question. Okay.
I know you said you wasn't under any time restraints as far as getting the building done, but what are you looking at? What are we looking at now? Right.
So we moved the date. The original bid opening was today. And when the contractors came to pre-bid, and I think Building and Grounds knew this, when they came to pre-bid, every one of the contractors said, can't do it. We want to give you an accurate bid. We need another week's time if you want an accurate bid. So that, in advisement of the architect and the urging of the contractors, we moved it back 1 week. So that means the entire project has been delayed by 1 week. Then beyond that, there may be some delays, as many as 30 days from the final project completion to upwards to 60 days. It really depends on how much work we accept from the contractor. If they only do interior renovations, then you may be looking, depending on which options are selected for the interior renovations, you may be looking at a maximum of 60 days, or you may be looking at as few as 30 days from the projected end date. But we really are looking at April to May. In that time frame. So I'll know better when we speak next week, when we look at what folks have bid, and then I'll be able to give you a final timeline once this board selects, here's the options we want. So you'll be determining those, and depending on the options you elect, will determine the timeline. Is that clear as mud?
Thank you.
Okay. All right. No other questions on that? Real quickly, turf is underway. I don't know if you've been by. Big old dirt pile right now. So I'll just say, for those listening, anyone interested in the old turf, please contact the school's athletic director at Tuscola or Pisgah. They've been assigned the task of divvying that out if folks want it. Just a forewarning, that is a very heavy material to move. It is not very practically installed or easily installed, but if you are in fact interested, please contact one of the athletic directors at those schools, and they'll be so happy that I announced that tonight. So just wanted to make everyone aware, but you better do so in short order because it's heading out. Any questions on that? All right. I wanted to talk just briefly about safety operations for return to school. I want to thank our teachers and parents and students all for the great participation we've seen from everyone wearing the mask. They are not comfortable. They are not something that many of us would choose to do. But that said, there's been great compliance with that, and I thank everyone for that. It has been a really, really good start. We have no known positive cases at this point, so that is good. Fingers crossed. I hope I didn't just jinx us, but no known cases at this point. As Jill alluded to, it seems like a really smooth start, and that's a credit to our administrative teams at the schools and our teachers really taking a look at the information provided and making sure they understood it and doing just a fantastic job. So fantastic job to all those implementing these things. Any questions on safety operations?
Can I have a sidebar here with?
We can. I'll go ahead. All right.
We've been talking with public health about a notification process, and I had one last communication even late today, but we thought we'd go ahead and share that just for public consumption. And so Dr. Putnam will get us started on that, and I'll fill in if there's anything to add.
So with the advice of legal counsel and the health department, we have arrived at what we can tell and what we can't tell in regards to positive cases. We have created a boilerplate statement that has been given to our administrative teams, and it basically says, good afternoon, good morning. I'm going to choose Junaluska Elementary since Chairman Francis named them earlier. Good afternoon, good morning, Junaluska Elementary. I wanted to make you aware that we had one positive case in arbitrary grade, 3rd grade today. If you are a direct or a close contact, you will be communicated with directly by the health department. And that's what's going to be provided out to either via Remind or via email or via Connect 5, the robocall, to our parents and students. And then Dr. Nolte can talk about the public communications, but we want to make sure that's in place and parents and students are notified, because that's our responsibility.
Yeah, I've actually talked with other superintendents, and I know Ms. Barker has talked to some of her peers in other school districts who've had positive cases. What we want to make sure is that our parents have the first notification. That may not be possible in this world of social media. People may start posting things and we can't control that. But if we're aware of a case, and usually what will happen is we'll catch that first thing in the morning when little Bill comes in, and we take his temperature or we start asking questions. But when we are aware of a case and public health department has told us it is a confirmed case, the first thing we want to do is send that message that Dr. Putnam has talked about to the parents at the appropriate grade level at the school. We can't do a lot more than that and maintain FERPA, HIPAA confidentiality, but we want them to know that and let them know that if their child does need to be checked further, they'll have a contact from public health. After that, I know that we will have some media inquiries, but I think I'll just take on the responsibility of fielding those individual questions rather than communicating to them as we have in the past with a big press release, because we definitely want the parents to get the notification before they read it in a reliable source like from a media outlet. Okay. I hope we don't have to use this plan, but I'm confident that we might. And so we'll try that. a time or two, and if that works okay, we'll keep using it, and if that doesn't work okay, we'll adjust. Thank you, Dr. Putnam.
I just want to say thank you very much for looking into that, because that has been a huge concern that I've heard about out in the public about, are we going to get notified if something happens? And how about teachers? Are they going to get notified as well for that class? I mean, that notification will probably go to them.
They'll know that it is in that grade level. Again, we may not be able to tell them the specific student's name, but the contact tracing, which would be done by public health, not by us, would include them.
So
they would get a call if public health felt they were a close contact. And then I'll repeat something just because I think it's a good public service thing to repeat, and we've said it many times. We've heard it from Dr. Jabin and other professionals, which all of us, Trevor in particular, have worked very closely with. We're not likely to be close contacts. I'm being dramatic here. Mm-hmm. If we'll put our mask on and stay 6 feet away. Okay? So I think that's the encouraging thing, but it has been a group effort. My last communication about that literally was about 5 o'clock in an email correspondence with Patrick Johnson, the public health director. So we've worked on that a lot together. And when I say we, a bunch of us and the public health people, they've been very helpful and cooperative.
I interject one thing here. This is the participating in our law conference right now, and that was a big subject today. A lot of the attorneys just spoke about exactly what you said. So much information can be given out to the public. I mean, to the classroom. You may not know that, and they laid out the same thing. The health department will be the one who's notifying they're doing the contact tracing. They're the ones who will be finding the contacts and trying to find out who, they do the tracing, they do that, and the health department's the one who notifies the people, and they will notify the administration as well, but to a point, like you say, the HIPAA laws are in effect, so there's only certain information that can be given out, and that's the thing I hope the public dearly understands, because I've had the same questions Mr. Francis just mentioned there a minute ago, and there's a certain amount that can be done legally and to keep everybody safe as well. So, but that was a big discussion today for quite a while. I was trying to find some of the pinpoints on it there, and I hadn't been able to locate them right offhand, but that was definitely a long discussion today for one of our a little over hour-long session, hour and a half. So it's everybody's working on it, and the whole state's working on it, and so like I say, it's continuing work in progress.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments in regards to that? All right, next we have transportation. All of our secondary buses are able to maintain 6 feet and operate under Plan B as they should. If you'll remember, Plan B requires the social distancing. Now, that's a little bit skewed in that they allow one student for every seat all the way up one side of the bus and all the way up the other side of the bus. So it's not really 6 feet, but it is allowed under Plan B. Also remember that we are able to put siblings or students from Broyhill from the same cottage in the same seat. And with that said, it's one run for every bus in secondary and 2 runs for every bus that normally runs 2 runs. So we have not altered our transportation schedule for secondary right now. If we were to see a big swing in ridership, that could change. Speaking very honestly, I don't know what we'll do here because the state is not providing any additional funding to run additional routes or pay drivers additional time. So right now, if it holds, we're in good shape. If it does not, we're going to be in a pinch, as you'd say. Any questions in regards to that? And then elementary, we are in compliance with the state guidelines. They strongly recommend B, but there is no way that we can comply with B and provided no additional funding and run additional routes and pay drivers additionally. We just don't have that funding. So we've met the letter of the law as far as Plan A. The good news is, again, ridership is down, and we are running all of our elementary routes as previously scheduled. If they were a 2-run bus, they're a 2-run bus now. If they're a 1-run bus, they're a 1-run bus now. The only exception to any of this is at Bethel Elementary and Bethel Middle, where they share buses, but we do have middle school students spaced out in accordance with Plan B allowances, and then on the same bus, elementary students spaced out under Plan A, and everyone's wearing a mask. So that Bethel Elementary, Bethel Middle is the only exception. But we are meeting the guidelines there on those buses. And I'd just like to thank our bus drivers and our transportation staff at this time. No one human could figure this out. And we certainly, our transportation department needed our drivers because they know those routes intimately, and they help the transportation department, and vice versa. Transportation department helped them, and our all of our administrators worked feverishly on this. So I just want to give credit where credit's due. They've done a great job. Any questions about transportation?
No questions, but I would like to piggyback what you just said. We made a plea to the parents out of abundance of caution and to relieve the burden, that if they could bring their kids to do so. And I know that a lot of them are doing that for those specific reasons. We do greatly appreciate that and hope that they'll continue to do that so we can continue to be successful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's been a big help. Any other questions or comments on transportation? All right. I got just 2 items, and I promise to shut up. I would have told you about this previously. I'm a little leery about offering something or talking about something that's out of my control. Through RISA, we were able to procure some rapid scans. They're called safe checks. They look like metal detecting archways that you would see in airports, but these are set up to scan temperatures. They can scan about 70 kids a minute, and we really felt like we needed those at the secondary school. So with the help of RISA, through the Dogwood Trust, if you remember Dogwood Trust, that's the account set up by Memorial Mission when it went from a nonprofit to profit, and those funds were available. We were able to get $23,000 worth of rapid scan safe checks. We have 2 at Tuscola, we have 2 at Pisgah, we have 1 at Waynesville Middle, we have 1 at Canton Middle, and we have 1 at Bethel Middle. And we've been evaluating the elementaries. We have 1 extra. I went to the elementary schools this week. I went to our 2 biggest ones on Monday. It was as to be expected, long lines. But I really don't see the value that these archways would add to the elementary. Where the safe checks are valuable is when you need to be able to scan large numbers of kids, which we have that, and also where you need to be able to, you can't control the traffic. So like at secondary schools, they're coming from multiple directions. Some of them are walkers, some of them are bike riders, some of them are car drop-off, some of them are bus riders. You really need to be able, and you can't predict when they're going to show up, so you really need to be able to capture as many of those as quickly as you can. In elementary, as y'all well know, they pull up, and as long as we've got enough thermometers, we're checking temperatures in the car. We can do that in large quantities in a controlled fashion. Because if the student were to get out of the car and then we're checking temperatures, mom or dad may already be gone home, and we don't. So then we're kind of in a pinch. So I don't see them as fruitful or beneficial at this time, especially with the improvements made in our car lines. I know that Jonathan Valley's on the first day was 75 minutes, and Miss Reeves and her staff have worked extremely hard. And I was out there on Wednesday, and I sat in a driveway there and just kind of watched to make sure we didn't back up on 276 across the bridge. At no time was that the case, and all the students were in by 7:53, I believe it was. So they started at 7:30. They were all in by 7:53. Junaluska has made those efforts and improved them dramatically. As have all our schools. Clyde did so as well. They had a tremendous amount of traffic the first day, but they've all found a mechanism to kind of speed things along, which is give me a thumbs up if nothing's changed since yesterday. If the answers to the questions are all still no, give me a thumbs up. And they've got big poster boards out there with those questions. And so with that said, they've been able to comply with safety regulations as well as create a speedy or efficient way to get in the building. So it's been a lot of hard work, but I think we've finally got there on drop-off car lines. Any questions or comments on that?
I live up on Jonathan Creek, and when I go into work, I see all those cars, and I'm thinking, what in the world's going on? But now you told me, so I know. 'Cause I'm not used to seeing that many cars.
And it's kind
to the
of
school.
right.
But it seems like they go really good, quick. You know, they're not backed up like out in the road or anything like that. So I think they're doing a really good job with that.
Right, and there are a few conditions that are not normally present, which, you know, kindergarten's usually a staggered entry, but they all came back at one time. And then, you know, you got moms and dads who, you know, they can't get out of the car, and neither can the kid, but you know, they want to get a selfie, and I don't blame them. Rightfully so, they want a selfie, but that, you know, it slows things down. And then you got these little fellas and little gals with their nap mats and a stuffed animal and a wagon full of stuff they're going to need for the day behind them, and 3 backpacks, and so it's a slow, cumbersome process. But the good news is, after that first day, they had all their Snuggle Buddy and nap time mats and all that in, and it went a whole lot better. So I'd like to thank everyone for their patience as we work through that, and a good job to our administrators. Any questions on that? All right, last but not least, we had a Mountain 6 and a WMAC realignment committee meeting today. Dr. Nolte and I attended virtually. They have created a new formula for realignment. Talked to us about it. It would seem that they intend to use ADM as 50% of a calculation to determine what level or what classification schools fall in. So 50% of the calculation would be just straight up ADM, average daily membership. 900 kids, 960 kids, 1,000 kids, however many kids attend the school. The second part of the equation would be what they call an identified student percentage. And basically, I'll just put it in layman's term, free and reduced lunch. They're going to use that as a 25% part of the equation as they are determining which level a school should fall in, or which classification. And last but not least, the one that got the most discussion and concern was what they called the state cut points. Some of you may know it by the Wachovia cut. And basically that is points assigned to high schools based on their performance in state level playoffs. And so every school, whether they make it to the state playoffs or any regional rounds, they get 115 points. Every single school. That's kind of the baseline. If you win a state championship, you get like 50 points. If you make it to the semifinals, you get like 35 points. And I'm just giving you estimates, but you can actually see it laid out on North Carolina High School Athletic Association's webpage. And so you accrue points. And so the third factor will be these state cut points, and it will be 25% of the equation. So just to recap, 50% for how many kids you have in the school, 25% of the equation will be how many free and reduced lunch students you have, and 25% of the equation will be how many state cut points. And the reason they're not calling it Wachovia Cup anymore is because they don't know who the sponsor is, or even if they're going to be having one. And they will use all three of those factors in those proportionalities to determine whether you're 1A, 2A, 3A, or 4A. And so it was
3-year average.
Thank you. Dr. Nolte's pointing out that this formula is using a 3-year average, so it's not a single year. If this were to be adopted, they would look at using this for the 2021-22 school year. And so, again, I think there's lots of hurdles there. Fair to say, you can just tell me to shut up, Dr. Nolte, if I say too much. The issue they seem to want to address are charter schools and the impact they've had in state playoff competition and championships. And so this formula was supposed to mitigate that issue. And the real issue is charter schools do not play by the same rules. And I'm not saying that in an ugly way. I'm stating that as a matter of fact. Public schools cannot recruit their students. They cannot allow individuals out of the particular area that they're housed or domiciled in to play for them. They have to participate where they live. And that's for every public school across the state of North Carolina. And charter schools, they could recruit from any surrounding LEA that they are near to or willing to drive to. And so they were trying to mitigate that issue. Dr. Nolte and I both offered other ideas, which is if that is the central issue, then why don't you look at creating their own division or eliminating them from the governance of the North Carolina High School Athletic Association, because as it stands, there are two separate sets of rules. And so, per usual, that is a lengthy process to get any of that changed. We would have to recommend an amendment. We'd have to get 6 school districts on board with us to make that change. To even get to make the amendment recommendation. And then it has to be brought to 60% or greater vote by all participating schools or the membership. So that's where we are with that. We did compel our 2 representatives from Region 8 to go back and speak on our behalf in 2 areas. Number one, please consider either creating a separate division for charter schools or removing them from the North Carolina High School Athletic Association umbrella. And number 2, it seemed apparent that they were looking for a vote by 60% of the membership. And I pointed out that an organization as old as the North Carolina High School Athletic Association in this day and age should be able to get 60% or greater on just about everything they put out in this day and age. There's really no excuse to it. Possibly moving away from votes being conducted at the annual meeting, where it's difficult for many of us to get away and drive all the way to Chapel Hill to attend a meeting. to consider electronic means, especially in the time we're in and the way we've been forced to electronic communication, and of all the times, this seems to be the best time to consider electronic voting. If you can do it for the President of the United States, it makes sense that you could do it for high school athletics. So, but that's just my simple little mind.
Just a couple side notes, not to belabor the conversation. Obviously, the free and reduced lunch numbers and the cut points will need to really be discussed, and we'll see how that falls out. A couple things that I heard, and Dr. Putnam, you did a great job of summarizing those two meetings. There was a lot of info. The things that I heard that were really encouraging to me is they are no longer talking about a 20, 30, 30, 20 classification split, which was very unfair to 2A and 3A schools, which we have. I would argue we have two 2A schools, but they're talking about a 25% split, which is encouraging to me because that takes the large 3As out of a 3A classification should you end up being classified that way. The other thing that was encouraging, and we did not solicit this conversation, one of our reps is actually from one of our conferences, and they have already had a lot of conversation with the North Carolina High School Athletic Association governing board about the inequity of small conferences and 6 conferences being beside each other, and how difficult it is to schedule when you have a 6 and a 9 close to each other. And that rep seemed to indicate that is being heard. So we were most encouraged by that. So I do think we have good representation regionally. I've worried about that some in the past, but it seems pretty good. And did hear a couple potential positive notes. Who knows how it will all shake out, but I do imagine it will shake out fairly quickly in the coming weeks. So.
Well, we were told at the last annual conference we attended in Greensboro that the biggest problem that they had, that they were facing, was 1A charter schools. They were able to recruit, and then they were just sweeping the athletics in that 1A conference. So I understand how all that would work for them. We just need to make sure that we're abandoning this 10% drop in ADM stuff that really penalized Tuscola and was threatening to penalize Pisgah as well in the future. So it's pretty good news. That doesn't address Charlotte Catholic, but it's everybody else.
Any questions for Dr. Putnam? The next item, the last public session item, is something that we think is really important. Throughout COVID, we have been worried about social emotional health, and we've not only worried about that for students, but we've worried about that for employees. I had one of our very capable principals actually contact me one day and say to me, you know, all this stuff we're doing is really, really great. Do we have anything in the works to help our employees? Because as you all well know, it has been stressful for about everybody in the world. Almost simultaneously, Jason came to me and said, I think we can do an employee assistance program for not a lot of money. So we've had a lot of that thinking going on, and if it's the pleasure of the board, we'll bring that to you on Monday, and Jason is going to describe that to you at this time. And I want to thank Jason for finding it based upon all the concerns that we've had, not only about student social emotional health, but staff also.
Thank
Thank you, Dr. Nolte. Members of the board, you have in your packet, this is the actual packet is about 15 pages. So I gave you the content so you can see essentially what they provide without spending a lot of paper and killing trees. But essentially what the program is for employees who have something going on in their life, COVID obviously, or other things that interfere with their personal life and therefore interferes with their work life. And the happier they are and the more settled they are, the better they do in the classroom and on the bus and in the cafeteria and everywhere else. So schools historically have spent a lot of resources on this type of thing for children, and rightfully so. It is a school, but we need to think about it for our employees as well, particularly during this time and all the things that are going on. The main thing that we're looking for here is the counseling benefits, the employee assistance benefits and services. The major part of that is counseling, and that can be for emotional issues, stress, depression, anxiety, marital relationships, loss and grief, particularly people who get sick and die, obviously, parenting issues, anger management, alcohol and substance abuse. And what they can do is, with this program, the employee can call into the employee assistance program, talk to a certified counselor or therapist, and they have unlimited telephone conferences for free. So they can call this therapist and talk to them as many times as they want. It doesn't cost them anything. They have 3 face-to-face visits per year if they want. So if they actually want to meet with someone and sit across from them and talk to them, they get 3 of those a year for free. But the teleconferences are unlimited, and that might be a video chat like a GoToMeeting or a Google Meet, or it might just be on the phone, whatever the employee prefers. So that's a big part of it. They also have work-life benefit services where they can get real estate advice, coping with change, co-worker relationships if they're having problems with co-workers. And we used to do some of that with mountain mediation. If co-workers were having a problem, mountain mediation would step in and talk to them as a unaffiliated third party. But we haven't done that in a couple of years now, so that would be nice to add that back. Coping with change, I'm sure we could all use some of that. And elder care services, which is becoming more and more important. So that's a second part of it. They also have self-help resources, things like adoption, dealing with cancer, separation and divorce, tobacco cessation, things like that. So those are counseling there. And a lot of it is financial, debt consolidation, debt and money problems, financial tools for investing, and help with mortgages and home ownership, just to name a few. So this is a very large company that does this. It's ESI, and we call it an EAP, but that stands for Employee Assistance Program. And they've been doing this since 1987. I talked to them a couple times now on the phone, and we've exchanged several emails, just getting the information and seeing approximately what it would cost. This is not an expensive program. It's about $16 a year per employee. So if you count all, about 1,100 employees, we're looking at between $18,000 and $20,000 a year. And Dr. Nolte can talk to you more about where that money might come from, but we think it's important. Most districts have this type of program now. A few times that I've talked to the attorneys about different things going on, they go, well, can you refer them to your EAP? Well, not yet, but we're working on it. So we've had to figure out other ways to provide those services, but this would be great for the employee. Third-party group, not affiliated, they could talk to them, they're not going to tell us what they say. We will be able to have a report, though, each month electronically on how many people are using it and what service they're using to see if we're getting any bang for the buck, so to speak. But it won't tell us what they're saying or what they're asking for or what they're doing. And so they can get some outside third-party unbiased type advice for anything in their life that's causing them problems. So we think it's a good deal. I think it'll be good for our employees. Any questions for me?
Is it?
I worked for companies that had employee assistance programs, and you hope that no employee ever needs it.
Yep.
But when they do, it is a great benefit to the employees.
Is it a year-to-year contract with them, or what? How does that work?
It would be a 3-year contract.
Three-year contract.
They are offering us a deal right now if we if y'all go ahead and approve it, and we sign the contract with them. It would start in January as far as the contract, but they would let us have access to the services starting November 1st, and they would give us those first 2 months free. So then it would be from January a 3-year contract.
I echo Bobby's comments on that. We use them and they're very important, and I think it's a good thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, in terms of funding, this is a good segue, not to leave this conversation, but one of the announcements that I wanted to make at the end before we looked at closed session is that we do have some COVID funds. Some of those actually expire in December. So the announcement that I had planned to make in advance was in the next month we will be coming to you with lots of things that we need to spend the COVID funds on. Those funds are very, very tight. You cannot supplant. You can't pay for anything that you've paid for previously with any fund source, local, state, or federal. But we might be able to use those funds. We're investigating that. I had a senior staff meeting the other morning where we really went through and assigned some of those funds to specific staff people. Obviously, Ms. Jackson leading the technology expenditures, and Brandy Stevenson, the EC, and then Dr. Putnam and Ms. Barker in their respective areas. Even if we can't link that to COVID funding, I just think this is important enough that we just look in the budget and find local funds, even if we have to use fund balance for this. I feel that strongly about it. So it's a pretty inexpensive cost, and we've hesitated in doing this before because we didn't know what our need was overall, but it's pretty clear that our need's pretty high right now.
Thank you very much. And again, I'll echo that sounds like a real good deal and much needed. What we're going to do from here is I'm going to ask for a motion to go into closed session, then we'll take a brief recess so we can break from the live streaming. And so we'll take about a 5-minute recess after this. Yes, sir.
Can I make one comment too, Dave?
Sure.
All board members to, as yesterday, you probably should have received from North Carolina School Board Association, the legislative survey request. And we did ask that every board member please fill them out and have to be there by October 30th. So we've got a few weeks, but it's time for that to go again. So they stressed that today in our sessions too, to remind all board members to fill out your survey.
Okay. All right, at this time, I'll need a motion to go into closed. Dr. Rogers made a motion. Second by Mr. Jimmy Rogers. Any question or discussion on the motion on the floor? There being none, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And just for the listening public, there'll be no action taken tonight this is just a closed session. So there'll be no actions. We will not come back in to session at all. We'll adjourn straight from closed session.